Welcome everyone to our final Gift of Open Source workshop on contribution. Today we are going to be talking with AmyJune about creating a patch. And all of the previous workshops have kind of built up to this point. So if you're jumping in this one and you don't have any experience with the issue queue or reviewing patches, you might want to take a moment, pause this, and look back at the previous recordings for the other sessions. Just to get you caught up to this point. I am going to be sharing a really helpful document that has all of the links and references that AmyJune uses for this presentation. So if you need a few more minutes looking at a website that she's talking about, it's going to be in there for you. Did I miss anything, AmyJune?
Nope.
Awesome.
I am going to kind of give a brief overview of a little bit of the things that built up too. So if you have a little bit more experience, that you might be able to step right in.
Awesome. Well, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. So creating a patch. This is sort of, this is geared, it's agnostic, you know, creating a patch is creating a patch, but the workflow I'm going to use is against the Drupal issue queue. But it's the same sort of concept across all of open source. You can use this in the track queue. The fundamentals are the same for creating a patch, but like I said, we're going to use that Drupal workflow. I am AmyJune Heinlein. I work with Canopy Studios. I am their QA engineer and community source ambassador. I get to do fun things like work with Pantheon and deliver workshops and teach people how to get back to Drupal. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and one of the ways I give back to my community in San Francisco is to help run events like SF Doug or Bay Area Drupal Camp. I am a hospice nurse by trade, so accessibility is near and dear to my heart. So I also help organize Ally Talks. I'm a co-organizer for that meetup where we talk about things accessibility. And I like to kind of talk about what I do outside of the issue queue, because there are lots of ways to give back to your projects without ever touching code. And the first couple of workshops I gave in this series go over some of those non-code contributions. So if development isn't your thing, maybe marketing and all those kind of things, I invite you to go and check out some of those past workshops. I'm a Pantheon hero. I love being a Pantheon hero. I get to do fun things like this. They have a community space in Slack and in some forums. They give little missions for us to do. You know, you're not quite sure how to get back to open source. They've got a couple of ideas every month that we can participate in. So check out being a Pantheon hero. And why give back to open source? Not only does, if you depend on open source depends on you, but contributing makes you feel good. It's kind of neat to think about if Drupal runs, 3 to 4% of the websites on the planet, and WordPress runs, excuse me, I just watched the State of the Word, and Matt said WordPress runs 39% of the websites in the world. Your code touches so many people. That's a kind of a glory, a wonderful feeling, right? And the more you give back, the more we move our projects towards perfection. We refine and really make our projects look good on the outsides for people who are evaluating it, or programmers who are wondering if this is the right project to build their sites in. But you also build your resume at the same time. The more you contribute, the more you learn. Each issue I open up, I learn a little bit more about things you wouldn't think about, like etiquette, collaboration, and code. So really, I want to sort of stress that the more you contribute, the more you learn. So today, specifically the agenda, we're going to look at how to find an issue, because, I've said this before, sometimes finding something to work on is the hardest part. We're going to talk a little bit about the Drupal core versus contributed space, because as beginners, it's nice to know the difference. We're going to look at search, the search function in the Drupal issue queue and some advanced search. We're going to talk a little bit about tooling because it's important to know what you might need on your machine to create a patch. And then we're going to, oh, this slide is not up to date. This is the slide from yesterday. But instead of applying a patch and reviewing code, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a patch and loading it back up to the issue queue. So, so that's sort of the agenda for today. A good place to start is on your profile page, both on Drupal and WordPress.org. Each of your profile pages has some really neat links that you can use for a diving board to find things to work on. Not only do both provide dashboards, but there's links to projects that you've been working on, there's links to issues that you've created, and there's links to the issues that you've posted on too. And we'll take a look at this during the demo. So core versus Contrib. Drupal.org or WordPress.org is where all of the code for the sites live. You can download the code base and put it on your machine and work on it. Where all the contributed stuff is what adds the functionality. And for WordPress people, we call them plugins, and for Drupal peoples, we call them modules, and they're basically the same thing. The only difference is the economic ecosystem is that Drupal is free, where you can see all of the code and you don't have to pay for any sort of premium things like the WordPress ecosystem. So in Drupal, there's distributions, there's themes and modules. Distributions are bundles of core along with some pre-configured configuration or some modules and that sort of thing. A theme is the look and feel of your site, so this is a bundle of files that really define the look and feel. And a module, just like a plugin, is a bundle of PHP or JavaScript or CSS files that extends your features and functionality. And the reason why I talk about core versus contrib is for novices, I recommend starting in the contributed space. It's a little bit easier, a little bit more fluent, where in that core Drupal space, issues move a little bit slower. There's more discussion around it. And as a novice, sometimes having more immediate gratification of working on something is a little bit easier and more empowering. So this is a look at the issue queue. You can pick and choose from the issue queue. When we look at my Drupal.org profile during the demo, we'll look at some options of how you can view the issue queue. So right here, you can see that there's a list of the projects, so this is both Drupal core and contributed. You can see the title, you can see, when it was last updated, when it was created, what kind of issue it is. And today, since we're going to be working on creating a patch, we're going to look at issues that need work or that are active. And we'll talk about that a little bit. So searching the queue, again, sometimes that's the hardest part, is just being a little bit overwhelmed at what you're looking at. And you can search the queue a few different ways. You can use keywords. You can look through the status. And like I said, today we're going to look for an issue that needs work. And the next slide I have is all about the different cycles of an issue. You can search by priority. As a novice, sometimes I suggest that we stay away from high priority issues, and same thing with a core. If you're a novice, sometimes it's easier not to work on stuff like a major bug that's creating a white screen of death, because the issue is going to move pretty fast. You can search by category, the version of the project. Say you're better at Drupal 7 than you are at Drupal 8, so you want to stick to Drupal 7 issues. And then the component, that changes from project to project. So the advanced search, here's a screenshot of what the advanced search looks like. You can see it's a series of fields. Most of them are autocomplete, so it's pretty straightforward how to use. Right here, you can see that in the issue tags section, it's a we've looked for novice issues, but you can see, you can look for projects that are assigned to a specific user. You can search for keywords, you know, and this is the place to do that. Say you're working with someone in your agency and you know they submitted an issue, but you can't remember what it was. You can use the submitted by field. So these are all autocomplete too, so it's really easy to use. The advanced search extends the functionality of the basic search. It adds the assigned to, the submitted by, the followers, and the issue tags. These are all collapsed by default. So when you first go into the issue queue, know that you can open up an advanced search feature and allow yourself more fields to search from. Okay, again, today we're going to look more at just the needs work and the active and the needs review statuses. Active is an issue that has been filed, but there's no work done on it yet. Needs work, say someone has put up a patch and someone reviewed it, but there's a couple of things wrong with it, so they kick it back to needs work. And then needs review, that's the status you change to when you have uploaded a patch and you want someone to review it for you. So those are the three major ones we're going to look at today. And then a brief look at tools. In the other workshops, tools aren't as important, but you do need certain things to create a patch. One thing that you do need is Git. That's a version control system. In WordPress, in the track queue, people still use Git. You might see that core patches are using SVN, but as a contributor and not a core maintainer, it's okay to use Git. Drush for Drupal, that's the Drupal shell. That helps you with some commands in your terminal. Composer, that's a dependency manager for PHP. This helps you download all of the requirements for a certain module. Say a module needs an external library or something like that. If they have a Composer workflow, it injects those dependencies for you. Having a text editor or IDE, of course, is important for creating a patch. You need some sort of user interface to look at and make changes to. You don't necessarily need an IDE. An IDE is heavier, you know, it's got like code review and code debuggers in it. And if you're doing less complex patching, a simple IDE will work, like Sublime or TextMate, or even, you know, something bare bones like BB Edit. You don't need all of the bells and whistles sometimes to work on a patch. And the reason I say this is because tools like PHP Storm and other IDEs, it adds another level of complexity, because now there's another learning curve to set up a project. You know, it's not as straightforward as just using an editor. A get client is helpful sometimes if you don't have full command of the command line. I'm not going to be showing this today, but a get client is basically a graphical user interface that offers basically a virtual representation of what's going on in your repository and your command line. So if the terminal eludes you, a get client is a good replacement for that, because it's okay not to work in the terminal. Okay, so creating a patch. You might have heard Drupal has moved to a different workflow. We're using pull requests and merge requests in GitLab and the issue queue. So sometimes people are asking, why are we still learning how to patch? Why are we learning the patching workflow? And I'm going to quote a blog article and read right off the slide for ADA purposes, that while project maintainers may not require patches and can handle merging and testing themselves with Get remotes, non-maintainers trying to test an issue will be greatly helped by a patch file. Patch files also allow for faster delivery of changes across multiple test environments. So patching isn't going away anytime soon. In the Dries note, they indicated that over 1,100 pull requests were created in the first month of the implementation of the workflow, but people are still submitting patches. You know, it's the workflow that people are used to. So that's what I'm going to show today. I'm not going to go into the merge requests and the pull requests because there's still some steps that are confusing for collaboration. So I want to wait to teach that until we've honed all that in and really refined that process a little bit more as far as the collaboration part of it. So that's why we're still doing patching. Okay, so the patching process, I talked about this the other day when we were reviewing a patch. It's pretty straightforward. There's not that many steps. And I like to just sort of outline the steps because it's more straightforward than people imagine. First, you find a problem, find an issue, or, if you know of an issue, you file the issue. You download the repository onto your machine. You create a new branch, create a new space that clones that first space. You make changes, you commit those changes, and then you create a patch, and then you upload a patch. So those are the steps. Find a problem, file an issue, download the repository, create a new branch, make changes, create a patch, and upload a patch. There are certain steps in that, but once you get that process down, it doesn't take very long to create a patch. Okay, so what is a patch? A patch is basically a diff file, a difference between files, to put it simply. So again, download the patch, create a new branch, and then create a diff file. And I have up here the command that you use to create a diff file. It's a git diff, the name of a branch or the name of the original branch, and the name of the new branch. And then that caret means create a file. And you can see at the end, it's a .patch file. And then I give the naming convention for the patch. And this might be confusing now, but as we work through it, you'll see how it goes. So the patch naming convention that was on that last slide, the first line, here in the second line, the first line, you have a description dash the issue number, because each issue has its unique node number, and then comment number. That's the comment where you're going to be posting your patch. So you can see on that second line, the description is, admin UI. So there's something we're working on the admin UI, that unique node number, and then -13. So that we're probably going to be posting our patch and comment number 13 in that issue. So again, this is for core. So you have your description, your issue number, your comment number, and .patch. And for Contrib, we like to put the name of the project first. So you can see it's the same sort of thing: project, description, issue number, comment number, .patch. So you see that we're working on meta tag. Short description is, UI typo, that unique node number, the anticipated comment number, .patch. And this will make a little bit more sense once we dive in. Okay, so we are going to take a tour of the issue queue. So I need to stop sharing and reshare my screen so you folks can see my terminal and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, clean that up just a little bit. Okay, so again, this is a little bit of an iteration of what we talked about in previous workshops, but here's my Drupal profile page. I use this as a diving board. Your buttons will look a little bit differently than mine, but I like this dashboard button right here. So if I select this dashboard, what it is it's a page that I've configured myself. I've added some blocks that help me with my process. The blocks that I have, you can see you can customize this yourself. You can move them around. I have a link for contributor links. This is a great block because not only does it give you links to what the different tasks mean, but it also gives you some predefined searches, like novice issues, issues that need review, bugs, so if you only have a few minutes to kind of deep dive into your contribution for the day, this contributor links is a great place to start. I have this link for issues for Drupal core. I have a link to Drupal Planet, to the RSS feed. I have all of the things that I've posted, because I like to check in on my posts throughout the day. And I also have a block where there are issues that I specifically filed myself. But again, whatever works for you, but this is a great place to kind of start your day. So let's select novice issues just to get a kind of a look at the queue, just to sort of see what it's all about. Now, novice issues was, you can see right here, it's actually an extension of the advanced search function. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to open the main issue queue for Drupal first. That way I can show folks like what the advanced search function is. So this is the issue queue for Drupal core. You won't find any contributed projects in here. Things are color coded. You can see in the status, if it's active, it's gray. If it's red, it needs work. So I did talk that we're going to mostly probably work on needs work or active issues, because those are the ones that need patches. But you can see that there's a short, concise title with keywords that you can search from. You can see how many people are working on it. You can see when it was created, when the last time it was updated, because as a novice, I don't, I like to tell folks to work on issues that are current and don't have a lot of back and forth. So picking one that doesn't have a whole lot of conversation to follow and read up on is usually better for your first time in the issue queue. So that's sort of the overview, but you can hit this advanced search function and it opens up a few more fields for you. So now you have this where you can search from the version, you can search from the category, and also where you can search from issue tags. So, we looked at that novice thing before. That was pre-populated, but to get that ourselves, we would just type novice in there and hit search. And now every one of these issues that pulls up in this view is a novice issue. So that's sort of a nice thing to do. And again, if you're working on, you just want to, work on things that need patches, you can, search and add needs work. So then it refines your search a little bit more. But for the sake of brevity, I already have an issue that we're going to work on. It's for the Simply Test Me module. Simply Test Me is a great website. It's a browser-based Drupal site that spins up sandboxes for folks. And this is really good for the review process in the issue queue. So I just want to navigate to that issue page or to the project page and kind of give a little bit of a brief overview of the project page too, because say you have a specific project that's near and dear to your heart, you can navigate to the project page and they've got their own specific issue queue going, and on this project page, you can see who maintains it. You can scroll down here and you can see when it was last updated. You can get a brief overview. You can check out some documentation. And what's nice too on these project pages is you can check out the code base without downloading it on your machine. So you can, we'll open this in a new window. You can go to the code base on GitLab. You can select which version you're going to work on. And you can kind of just scroll the code base without having it on your computer. Go back to the project page. We're going to navigate to the issue queue because we're going to work on an issue that's already created. And this is an issue I've created in the past. So I'm going to search for all the issues that needs work. And you can see that all of these, oh, I hit needs review. Sorry, needs work, search. So we'll just pick one off the top of the list. So there's this README. A README is internal documentation within the repository itself. And these are great sources of information if you're looking for how the module works, what it does, but it's also a great place for new beginners to jump in because it's in the code base, but it's not code. It's usually in Markdown or in plain text. So you don't need to know code to update a README. So we're going to just select this issue. And we can see that we're just going to kind of look at the issue and see if it's something appropriate for us to look at. So it's missing information about the admin email in the README. In a Slack conversation when we were doing some testing over the summer, Greg mentioned that that we give credentials for the username and password, but he needed a credential for an email. So after some digging, he reported that, there's a credential that you can use when you first sign up. Say you uploaded a module where it requires an email sign-in. So I took this out of the Slack conversation, and I created an issue behind it. So what we want to do is we want to just update the README and update the supporting docs. The supporting docs have already been updated, but now we're going to look at the README and see what we're talking about. I have in the past created a patch already for this, but if I scroll down and read through the issues, the last issue or the last comment is a good place to start. Last night when I was reviewing this to work on today, I made a comment, and I'll just read this for ADA purposes. I'm moving this to needs work. There are actually 2 places in the README where the email creds should be added. I'm assigning this to myself and will be using this issue as an example in a contribution workshop tomorrow. Please save this issue for that demo. I do like to provide information like that for transparency, just so folks know that I'm helping new folks out, because this is a novice issue and I'm a little bit beyond that novice grade. And typically we want to save novice issues for people who are novice contributors. That doesn't mean let me back up and say, if you've been on Drupal.org for 12 years and you're a coder, you can still be a novice in the issue queue, So just be aware that there's novice on many different levels, and being transparent in the issue queue when you're a beginner is a pretty great way to get more support. Sometimes like you've formatted the patch wrong, or you've not filled in the issue summary right away. People are going to help you out a little bit more when you're transparent about being a new contributor. Okay, so we do kind of see from this last comment that I did post a patch. So just to sort of look at that patch, I'm going to hit this review button, and we can see that I submitted a patch that added an admin email on one line. And that comment that I made said it should really be in 2 places in the README. So we have an issue that we're going to work on. So if we look back at our steps, to create a patch. It's here somewhere. Sorry for the scroll. Okay, so the patch process, we found the problem. The issue's already been filed. So now we're going to download the repository onto our machine. So where you do that, if you go to the project page, that initial page where we jumped off into the issue queue, there's a version control tab here. So you select the version control tab. And what this is it's kind of an overview of all the get kind of stuff that you need to work on the issue. You can see that there's a link for setting up the repository for the first time, how to create a new branch, how to do a patch, how to create a patch, how to apply a patch. So if you ever, don't remember some of these steps, this version control tab is very powerful, and it's on every project page. So now that I'm on that version control tab, I'm going to snag that that piece of code, because what this piece of code does is when I open my terminal, it's going to clone the specific branch onto my machine, and then it's going to change directories and put me in that repository. So I'm going to open my terminal. I'm going to see where I am, present working directory. I'm in my AmyJune folder, but for the sake of ease, I am going to change directories, that's CD, into my desktop. And I need to do that right. I love live demos. So I'm going to CD into my desktop, and I'm going to do a PWD, just sort of muscle memory for everyone, present working directory, and make sure I'm where I want to be. Yes, I'm in my desktop. Again, I'm going to snag that command, paste it in, and what it's doing is it's cloning that repository onto my machine. So now I have that code base on my machine. I use a little trick called open space period. And that opens it in my Finder window, which is super nice because say you don't know where you are, you're all over the place in your terminal. Open space period opens it in the terminal. And what I do for ease is I just kind of drag the folder into my text editor. So if we go back to the thing, remember we want to touch the README file. So go back into our editor and we want to go into the README. And we want to add those email credentials. So here's the credentials for the site, username and user password. And then down here, there's also a spot. So that first patch only added that username or that user email once. So what we want to do is we want to add it in both places. Okay, so here's the file that we're going to touch. You can see it's not code. You know, like I said, this is a great place to learn how to patch for non-coders. Okay. We go back to creating a patch, we downloaded the repository on our machine, we looked at the code base, and now we wanted to create a new branch because remember we talked about the patch file being the difference between one branch and another branch. So go back to our terminal and I'm going to create a new branch, and these instructions are also on the version control page. I'm going to do a get checkout -b, and the easiest way to find things, especially if you work on a bunch of projects, what I like to do is I like to create the branches and name them on basically my patch name. And remember, our patch name is going to be that unique node number and the anticipated comment number. And that might sound confusing. So if we go back here, we can see the first patch I made, you know, here's that naming convention, the name of the project, a short description, we're changing the README. Here's this number, it matches this unique node number up here. So that's what that unique node number is. And then -4, because I commented and filed the patch on comment number 4. So name of the project, short description, unique node number, dash the anticipated comment number. So we need this information right here. And I also need to know what comment this is going to be. So this is comment number 12. So I'm just going to basically name my branch short because this isn't the patch. This is the name of the branch. So I'm naming my branch the unique node number -12 because then it's easier for me to find later when if say I have to like go back and create something else. So get checkout -b creates a new branch and puts you in that new branch in the repository. Okay, so you can see we switched to a new branch. So we're going to go into our text editor and we're going to add that email. So I'm going to add the email there and add the email there. Okay, so I'm going to save the file. I'm going to go into my terminal and, you know, for your repository to know that that stuff exists, you need to commit it. So we're going to do a get add period and a get commit message. And this commit message does not show up anywhere on Drupal. It's only for you. So if you're new to commit messages, you're new to the command line, use the workflow you do it wherever you work, or if you freelance, you know, use your ticket number, you know, or short description. So I'm going to make a comment and say fixes README. And then I'm going to save. And now if I do a get status, we can see that there's nothing to commit, and I've committed those changes. So going back to our instructions, we created a new branch, we made the changes, and now the next step is to create that patch file. So if we go over here to the version control, you can see down here, creating a patch. So get diff. Ours is going to be a little bit different workflow, and that's okay. But basically, you know, what we want to do is we want to make sure we have this information. We worked in different branches, so our get diff is a little different because we're comparing two branches versus the same repository. So if we go to our terminal, now I'm going to move my text editor over so you folks can see what I'm doing. So you can see this is just a copy paste. And I have a file where I have this information, and that way I don't have to remember each time how to do it. It's okay to copy and paste. So remember, what we want to do is we want to have compare the two branches. We named our branch 3106649-12. And then our first branch, if you can't remember the first branch, you can do get branch. And you can see the branches that you have on your machine. We downloaded the 7.x version, and we created the one in green. So we're gonna just get diff, you know, between the two branches. We're going to caret, we're going to pipe it into a new file. And remember, we want to the name of the project, which is simply test dash a short description. So we're just going to say something like README. And just to make sure, let's look at our naming conventions for Contrib, our project, our description, our issue number, and our anticipated comment number .patch. So if we go back to that text editor, we can see name of the project, short description, unique node number, anticipated comment, and patch. So this is our command. And we're going to just paste that in the terminal. So now we've created a patch. And what we can do is we can look in our repository, because we're in that repository, that's where we created the patch, and we can review that file. So this is your patch file. You know, it's not going to have the whole information from the file, but it gives you a little bit of, you know, a little bit of color coding, some pluses and minuses. You can tell that we added a line here, we added a line here. If we had deleted a line, you know, that plus sign would be a minus. So what I like to do is I like to review the patch before I actually post it, because sometimes I've been known to like create a blank patch for some reason because mistakes happen. So I just review the patch. So we've created a patch, we've added the email credentials in 2 spaces. So now we go back to the issue, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a useful comment. I'm going to say I am uploading a patch that adds the email threads in both relevant locations. Marking needs review. I always like to comment when I'm changing the status, and I'm also going to say I am unassigning myself. Because I did assign myself this issue yesterday to kind of reserve it for me. And because I'm done, I'm not really one to review my own work, you know, much like you don't review your own code, you have someone else do it. So I'm going to unassign myself. I'm going to change the status to needs review. I'm going to look at all the metadata and make sure that it's all up to date, because sometimes the scope of issues can change as comments progress. It's still a task. It's still a priority. The component is still documentation. You know, we're working on the 7 version. The tags are still relevant. You know, this is a novice issue, so we're going to leave this novice. But say the issue became more complicated, you know, like maybe PHP versions were changed, you know, and it's no longer a novice issue. Feel free to remove those tags or add tags. This second tag is a tag for an event. We don't remove event tags because it helps the organizers of the event track what issues were worked on during that event. But say if the gift of open source had a tag, we would fill that in there. And I do want to mention something about tags, is it is an autocomplete field. So this is a documentation issue. So we can add the documentation tag to this. These are autocomplete. Chances are, if it's a tag besides a camp tag, and you're the first one creating that camp tag, but any other tag, it probably already exists. And we want to really advocate that people use the autocomplete function, because for a while we had a tag for accessibility, but it was spelled wrong 3 times, you know, so really just utilize the power of autocomplete in Drupal. So we'll add the documentation tag. And again, I'm uploading a patch that adds the email creds in both relevant locations, marking needs review and unassigning myself. So if I scroll down, there's the issue summary. We're not going to change that. But what we want to do is we want to attach the patch. So we'll choose the file. And remember, we downloaded the repository onto my desktop. And from the desktop, you know, here's the Simply Test Me module, and here's that patch. And what's nice too is you can kind of see a little review of the patch too, as that, like I said, I've uploaded an empty patch before, so kind of gives me that second check. And I hit open, and I hit upload. And then the crediting and commenting is more for maintainers. You know, you can click all these buttons you want, but it won't do anything because if you're not a maintainer of the project, you can hit save or you can hit preview. You know, we're going to hit save. I'm pretty confident that we're okay with this issue. So now we have a new patch, and the other day we looked at reviewing a patch. I have some buttons that I have added to my issue queue with the Dredditor extension. So I can kind of look at this and do a quick review of my patch. You know, if I wanted to, I could spin it up on Simply Test Me, but we worked on Simply Test Me here. So Simply Test Me isn't going to work to test a patch on Simply Test Me. That's just kind of a weird thing. But we did use this button the other day to test a patch where we clicked on the button, it spawned a website, and the patch applied. So those are the basics. So we'll just kind of look at that again and kind of do an overview, because I like to, you know, talk about what we did again. We found a problem, which was adding an email credential to a README in the Simply Test Me project. The issue had already been filed, so we didn't have to worry about that. We downloaded the repository locally on our machine. We put it on the desktop. We created a new branch to work on, you know, with that get checkout -b with a new branch name. We made changes in our text editor, and I did skip a step here. We made the changes, and then we committed those changes using get add and get commit. And then we created a patch using that diff command, where we did a diff between the 2 branches, and then we piped it into a file that was, and we'll look at the name again, the name of the project, Simply Test Me, the description being README, that unique node number, the comment number .patch. So it's relatively straightforward. You know, like I said, this was an issue where we didn't touch code necessarily, but we changed some of the documentation in a text file. So I do want to see if there's any questions. Okay, Mark. So the comment number. So what I like to say is, I might as well just share my screen again. What I like to say is anticipated comment number. So if I was to scroll this issue, you can see that this patch that's named, the node number and the comment number is the number where the patch, the comment number where the patch was applied. So if you scroll down, it's -4 was applied to comment number 4. And my second one was, -12 to comment number 12. Now, one of the reasons I go in here, like say I know I'm going to be working on this issue, but it might take me a little while, especially if it's a code issue. What I'll do is I'll make a comment that I assign it to myself, and I kind of reserve the issue for me. You can see in comment 11, I said, I'm assigning this to myself. So that way, when I came at it today, I would know that most likely no one's made a comment so far. But I did check to see what the next comment would be. But sometimes what will happen is you're busy and you're working on the issue, but say the maintainer's like, oh, great, thanks so much for working on this. Looking forward to your patch. So that comment number now has changed. But the glory is you can always go in there and change your files. You can go in here and you can, rename your file, like, okay, it's no longer 12 and now it's 13. So you can change it that way. So that's a pretty simple fix. And then as far as like naming the branch with the comment number, that's more internally too, so you're more than welcome to change the branch. I don't usually do that, but you can name your branch anything. You could have named the branch README, you know what I mean? And avoided the comment number completely. The reason why I name the branches for the node number and the comment number, because I usually keep things in a patch file, and I'll kind of show that here. My usual working structure is I have a folder called Drupal. Let's make this a little bit bigger, Drupal. And then I have all of the modules that I'm working on currently in this module folder. And then I create a patch file. So you can see sometimes I have 2 or 3 patches, for the same project. So I have this on this node number on there to kind of keep track of my patches in here, and then as I say I, made a mistake on a file, I can look here and see the changes real quick. So that's just an easy way for me to keep track of things. But normally, you weren't in, but for the sake of ease, this time I just downloaded the repository onto my desktop, and kept the patch in the repository itself. So your workflow could be a little bit different. Great, okay. So any other questions? And I was telling Katie before we started the recording, and for transparency for folks watching the recording, I did skip a slide here. I should have had a slide with like specific commands for like how to name a branch, and specific commands for like adding, once you make changes to your file, to like commit the changes. And I sort of skipped that step. So by the time this goes online, we'll have another, or once its recording's available and the documentation's available, I'll add a slide to the slide deck that we share that specifically calls out those commands. So it makes it a little bit easier for folks. Because again, like I said in the documentation workshop, sometimes when you're used to doing a workflow, you skip steps by accident because they're just inherent, where someone as a beginner would be like, wait, my stuff doesn't look the same because they didn't commit the file or something. So so that's a learning process for everybody. But we'll add that slide, and we'll add some documentation to the Pantheon documentation on specific steps on how to do it, kind of like just step by step.
By the time this recording gets posted to the forum and available in documentation, we'll have that edit made. So if you're watching the recorded version, it'll be ready for you. I think that is all for today. Thank you so much for your time, AmyJune. I have learned so much from you over the last few weeks and feel significantly more empowered to give back to Drupal and WordPress, which
And
is a long way to go.
I do always, and I didn't say this in the other presentations, but this is sort of the last one. I am in the unique position where my job with Canopy is just to give back to open source communities. And one of my favorite things to do is to help other people give back to open source communities. So if anyone wants like a mentor or like links to documentation, or they have further questions or wants a one-on-one, I am more than happy to help people with that, or tell them where the next contribution day is. You know, I have a lot of resources that are just so vast that I can't share them. So I go by Volkswagen Chick across all of the medias, you know, and then Pantheon knows where to find me. Yeah, I totally invite people to, like, you know, say you want a little bit of lesson with your friend, you know, or you're just getting in. I'm more than happy to sit down with people and do a little bit of a deep dive.
You are incredibly generous with your time. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.